Hi, I'm Caroline Leavitt. I'm the co-founder of A Mighty Blaze, the book initiative that was begun right at the start of the stupid pandemic. We help independent bookstores, authors, and readers. And today, I just can't tell you how thrilled I am to talk with Delia Ephron. I had read and adored her piece, How to Eat Like a Child, and the subsequent book. I was insanely jealous of her good relationship with her sister Nora and Amy. She's written movies that we all love and know. You've Got Mail, Bewitched, The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, Hanging Up, This Is My Life, Mixed Nuts. And actually, one of my favorite of her movies is Michael, where John Travolta is a bad boy angel. It's just a wonderful movie. Her books include How to Eat Like a Child, Love, Loss, and What I Wore. And we're going to be talking today about her new book, which is just extraordinary, called Left on 10th. Welcome, Delia. We are so excited to have you here.
I'm just delighted to be here.
So I want to say Left on 10th is actually one of the happiest books I've read about terrible and tragic loss because it has such a strong spine of hope in it. In 2012, you lost your sister, Nora Ephron. Then your husband, Jerome Koss, died of prostate cancer. Then you yourself were diagnosed with leukemia and you had a stem cell transplant. How does one make their way through such a loss and come out on the other end?
Well, you left the love out of it.
Love, yes, that's right. I'm sorry. That was one of my later questions. Yeah.
Boy, after I lost Jerry, and about 6 months later, I was trying to disconnect his landline, and Verizon crashed my internet, and I got into just one of those terrible fights you get in with your phone company where they're disconnecting me,
Right.
having to do the prompts over and over. And so, as a way of channeling both my grief and my frustration with Verizon, I wrote a New York Times op-ed. And I think it was about 4 months later, I got an email, maybe it was longer, 5, uh, from Peter. And Peter was a psychiatrist, a psychoanalyst in the Bay Area. And he wrote me and said, we still can't agree on how many dates we had, but we had 2 or 3 dates 54 years ago.
Wow.
And he just wrote the most charming email and said, if you want to correspond. And the amazing thing about this, of course, is that first of all, I mean, we were set up by my sister Nora 54 years ago. It had been
That's incredible.
so he came blessed by Nora. Then it turned out the last trip he and his wife had taken was to Siracusa, which is a beautiful but falling down place in Sicily, and not that many people go there. And that was his last trip, and that is the title of my last novel. And then a month before he wrote me, I got an invitation to speak at a conference of Jungian analysts in Houston. And I thought, what's a Jungian? I better find out. And sure enough, Peter is right. I'm a Jungian analyst. And I thought, oh my God, here he is. And
All these connections.
we started to correspond. And I had spent so many years of grief and sadness and struggle trying to figure out my life now alone. And to suddenly be falling in love, which was completely unexpected, it was the most extraordinary thing. The feelings and I was 72, he was 72, and it felt exactly the same as it had been when I'd met Jerry when I was in my 30s. And it was transforming, really emotionally transforming. And then 4 months later, I got diagnosed with an acute leukemia, a fierce leukemia, AML. And Peter was there with me. And he was my doctor. He was a doctor of the heart, a doctor of the soul. It's like,
that's incredible. It's incredible.
With me through it. So, I mean, that's how I'm here.
That's incredible. I wanted to
love and medicine.
Yeah, you know what? There was an astonishing book by Deborah Kopeikin called Lady Parts, where she talks about how she was diagnosed with a cancer. Survival rates were really bad, and she decided, you know what? I'm just going to screw around. And she had something like sex every night for 2 months. And when she went back to the doctor said, "This is really strange, but your tumors have shrunk." And they continued to shrink. And the doctor said, well, you know, there's a hormonal thing that goes on with when you're in love, your body produces chemicals, and love somehow can make disease better. And I was wondering if you felt that it sounds like you felt that that actually might have been sort of the case with you as well as modern medicine.
Um, oh, that's a tricky question.
Right.
Um, I was terribly sick, and I had cutting edge treatment. Both the drug that first put me in remission had not yet been approved by the FDA. Was called CPX 351, and now it's called Vyxeos. And that put me in remission, and then it put me in remission again, so I could have the bone marrow stem cell transplant. And it was a brutal 100 days in the hospital, and I was just a rag of a person. I really, and very close to death. And all what I believe was that, you know, Peter was there every minute, and we got married in the hospital, but Peter was there with me every minute, and he was a doctor, and I'm someone that doesn't like to track medical things. I told my doctors right at the beginning, don't tell me too much. I think you have to tell doctors whether you're that person who needs to know everything,
Right.
you're that person that doesn't. And they listened. They were wonderful. But I knew Peter was tracking everything. And every morning when I woke up, I saw him across the room sitting there, you know. And
That's
I
lovely.
think it was great. But do I think that would have happened without the medicine? No, I don't. I just
Right.
know
Right. Of course
that
not.
his love was a powerful thing. And it was powerful also that he was a doctor. So he, you know, when I was saying to him, please just let me go, he's saying, this is working. I'm reading
Right.
the science. It's working. And he wouldn't. But my doctors were amazing. So I don't, you know, that story, I don't
Okay.
quite, yeah.
Okay. So I also wanted to know that there's a thread through the book where you keep reminding yourself, or maybe it's the doctors who are reminding you because you had the same cancer that your sister Nora did, that your cancer is not the same as hers was. So in a sense, before this, you were so close to your sister that there was a real bond there. How difficult was it to keep convincing yourself that your outcome did not have to be hers?
It was extraordinarily difficult. You know, my doctors were very clear. They said to me, under a microscope, your cancer is different from hers. It has the same name, but it's not the same. And also, you know, there were drugs. There have been new drugs in AML after a year, as my Dr. Robos put it, years of nothing. So I was the beneficiary of advances in this in
Right,
treating this disease. And they kept saying that to me. And they knew that we were close, and they knew that that was psychologically a powerful thing to
right,
say, as well as a medical truth. And for me, well, of course, look, I was her younger sister. There are four sisters. We're all writers. It's Nora, Delia, me, then Hallie, then Amy. And I just wanted to do everything she did when I was young. She was my big sister, and she was so amazing. But of course, I couldn't keep up. She was running around the track so fast. But then suddenly to be told I could survive, and I had to figure out who I was. I mean,
mhm,
writing is your fingerprint. Nobody else can do what you do. And when I wrote How to Eat Like a Child, I saw that. I said, oh, this is me. That's my voice. But Nora and I, she used to say we shared half a brain, and we collaborated so beautifully together that it was I felt like I was betraying her to believe that I was not her. But it was also very empowering, and it was running through my head a lot, you know, this thing that they repeated it a lot to me to make me believe I could survive.
That's extraordinary. So I wanted to know what grabbed me is that you felt that you lost a year and you had to rely on others to remember it for you. But the thing is when you can't remember, you can't heal. So you had to rely on others. So first, was it difficult for your friends to talk about this with you? And how difficult was it for you to hear about your life from others?
But let me just say what happened was, after at first I thought I wouldn't write at all. I mean, I was so debilitated mentally and physically. I was in a wheelchair. I couldn't walk. I had to learn all sorts of things like that, like how to stand up and walk without holding onto a wall for support or a couch. And I just thought, well, I'm here, thank God, but I don't think I'll ever write. And then I started to get better and better and better. And it was 2 years post transplant when my writer's heart started beating again. And I thought, oh my gosh, life gave me a story. And I knew it was a big story. I mean, I'm a dramatist. I knew it had everything that you would ever need.
Yeah, it's got all the arcs.
Yeah, I mean, it was a gift in the end in some way. So, but I knew I didn't. I mean, in the hospital, I had very spotty memory. And I began to interview my friends and I began to read all of Peter's emails that he wrote, these positive, amazing emails to people when I was sick. And he never said, God, this is hell. And it was hell. But he never
That's
said that
interesting.
it's working. Delia is strong. I mean, it was, and well, he's a wonderful writer. So they're lovely. Anyway, so I said to my friend Meredith, and Meredith said to, what was it like when you were there? And she said, well, you were in the ICU for 6 days. I said, what?
Wow.
And I have no conscious memory of ever being in an ICU. So she said, yes. And you were swearing at everyone.
I love that.
Like me. So they told me this amazing story about, going when I went crazy and having an MRI, and Peter he came in and he just covered me and said, we're finished here. And he took me out. I mean, she told me things. And the thing is, now that I was writing it, these were like treasures to find. These were
Right.
stories for my book. This was my journey. And so it was kind of fabulous to put it all together and make something out of it. I could make something out of it.
Can we talk about the structure of your book, how that came about? Was it just organic for you? Because sometimes there's really short chapters that might be a paragraph, and then there's long chapters and there's emails. How were you able to do that? I mean, was it organic or did you plan it out?
Well, I knew that the structure would just be generally from, the night that Jerry, my late husband, died, because that was such an unbelievable night. And I had made a lot of notes about what happened so I wouldn't forget it. But I have a young screenwriter friend who I asked her to go through my computer, and she collected every email between me and Peter, between my girlfriends, between Peter and when I was a patient, and my doctors and everything. And she also collected all the drafts of things in my computer that I had written just to make. Sometimes I write a piece I don't sell. I just write something that happened, and I don't keep a journal, but I do that. So she gave me these 6 gigantic loose leaf binders with everything that happened chronologically from 2015 when Jerry died through 2018 when I was pronounced cured. No, 2020 was when it was to 2020. And they are, here's one of them. Can you see that? That is
Oh my God, that's amazing.
these. And I started to write the book from it. I just started to write. And
How did it feel?
just broke down, because I write drama. I know how to structure stuff like that. But some things seemed right to me to be just a very short thing, and other things were longer stories.
How do you feel now that the book is out? I
I'm
mean, do
sorry.
you feel exposed now that the book is out,
Yeah,
or do you look at it and think this happened to somebody else?
Not the book itself, but the promotion, this
Oh,
photograph
right.
newspaper where people say, "No, give me photos of you and Nora. Give me photos of you." And so I had to apply a lot of stuff, or my publisher would not be happy if I didn't. I mean, I can't write a book this personal and then say, "No, you can't see any photos of me." So, and it used to be when you were published, it was just in the printed newspaper, and there was an
Right.
expression called "it wraps the fish," which means that whatever was in the paper on Monday, on Tuesday it wraps the fish and it's gone. But it's not anymore. Now it's on the internet forever.
Forever. That's
So
right.
that was the difficult part. Not, uh, the book. I mean, I was able to shape it, make it. I mean, I'm proud of it. I'm proud of it as a work of writing.
It's more than just a work of writing. It's incredibly inspiring on so many levels. Not just that you overcame this disease, but you lost your husband. And then you found another husband. You found love late in life, which is the most amazing, amazing story ever to this extraordinary man. And it's inspirational to writers. And it's a love story in so many ways, especially to New York City. So
Excuse me.
let's talk let's talk about New York, because when you first met your husband, he's from San Francisco, right?
Yeah.
And there was a really funny line where you kept thinking, what am I going to do with somebody from California? I'm the quintessential New Yorker. Um, Tell us about that.
Well, I want to say, first of all, I grew up in Beverly Hills, so I have history in California. I went to Beverly Hills High School, but I discovered Greenwich Village when I was about, oh, I don't know. It was in my when I was at Barnard, and I lived here for a while in my very early 20s, and it was true love. I mean, you know how you find a place that is just
Yes,
your place, and it
yes.
took me many millions of years to get back to Greenwich Village, but I did get back here with Jerry, my late husband, in 2002. I found myself living on 10th Street, which is where I always wanted to be. And Peter grew up on Central Park West.
Oh,
Okay.
so
And so he has history, and he went to Columbia because that's when we were fixed up. And so he has feelings about that, but he's a big hiker. Let me
uh-oh.
near hiking, and he loves the Southwest. That's his spiritual home.
Okay.
Is Moab and Arches National Park and Grand Canyon. I said to him in our first email, all the emails are in the book between us because I think
Right.
they were pretty wonderful when I read them later. And I said, I only hike across the village to a bakery. So I said, I'm a city girl. It's important
I
to know, important to believe.
Don't you also think that there's something so welcoming about New York? When I first arrived in Manhattan, I was fleeing a bad marriage, and I remember, and coming from a suburb, I remember the first thing I saw was a man was walking towards me, and he had a tree branch taped to his head. And as soon as I saw that, I thought, I'm in the right place.
Yeah,
Nobody was even looking at it. I just felt this is the right place. I mean, there's something about New York City that,
understand that. I think New Yorkers are born all over the country, and then they come to New York City and they go, "Oh, this is who I am."
yeah, yeah,
Uh,
this is who I am. It's incredible, and it's changed a lot, but it's still basically New York.
And
So I want
tell you something, I had an almost identical experience, which is that I came back to New York after making a ridiculous marriage in my 20s. That was when I lived in Providence, Rhode Island. I came back to New York to the arms of my girlfriends. I was crossing the street. I remember Park Avenue. I was crossing Park Avenue, and there was a woman too scared to cross. And I said, "Oh, take my arm." And then I said, sort of jokingly, "Oh, I'm on this side, so if a car comes along, it will get me and you'll be safe." And she said, "Oh, no," she said, "my life is over, but yours is just beginning."
Oh my God,
Yeah.
that's incredible. That's
Mhm.
incredible. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I can remember crying on the subway, and two women came over to me and said, "What's the matter, honey?" And I was 20 years old, and they must have been, I don't know, in their 50s. And I told them, oh, my husband kicked me out. And one of them said, you know what? You're going to be so glad you left. And they told me where to go. And they said, you have to go here for lunch. And we would come with you, but we're going here. And I thought, again, it was, this is the right place.
Yeah. Oh, that's the most wonderful story.
It is. And I just sometimes you feel like cities love you as much as you love the cities. And I think that's your experience with New York City, right?
It is. That's absolutely true.
Okay, so I want to talk about what it was like for you growing up in this household of your parents were screenwriters. They wrote Carousel and Desk Set, and your sisters were all writing. What was it like growing up among all that talent? Did you feel like fireworks going off inside you, or did you feel worried that you wouldn't be able to, make the grade? Or did you know early on that you were going to be a writer? What was it like?
Well, my mother was this was the 50s, right? And
Right.
my mother was so proud of herself that she was a screenwriter, that she had a career. And she used to say things to us, I don't go to open school nights. She said, I don't go because I have a career. It was like
Love it.
separating herself from every other woman in the neighborhood, because she had a problem. I mean, because there's nothing I love more than girlfriends. And there's
Right. I was going to ask did she have any girlfriends?
but we were raised with by a rabid, not exactly a feminist, but you will grow up and you will have careers. That's what she said to
Wow.
us over and over again. And not only that, this is what she said about getting married. She said, elope.
Oh, but that's so different.
Yeah, I know.
Nobody said that in the 50s.
No, I know. So we would all gather for dinner, and I was a funny kid, so I would tell my stories. And every time I said something funny, my dad shouted, "That's a great line. Write it down." So, we were, and my mother, she was raising a tribe. I mean, she thought she was going to. And the very odd thing about it was that this was a very joyful childhood, actually. The dinner table was fun. Everybody told stories. We played 20 questions. We played charades. It was nice. But, when I was about 11, my mother suddenly tipped over, I guess, into a very severe alcoholism. And then all family life changed. And we all grew up in a very scary home because there were very violent arguments at night. And instead of this joyful dinner table, I would kick one of my sisters. Don't say that. That could set them off. You always think if you're a child, you can have some control over alcoholic parents, which, by the way, you can't.
You can't.
And so my high school years were very, very difficult and hard. And, now that I'm a writer, I feel like I got all sorts of stuff from both sides. I got that joy and that confidence about my wit and all that. And then I also got some sort of understanding of darkness,
Right.
and sadness, but also, well, it was just, if you grow up in a family where it's not safe, I think you always think if you're looking right, something's coming at you from the left.
Right.
So it's a lifetime of anxiety.
Right. Are you still anxious now?
Oh yeah. I mean, that's never going to go away.
I was hoping you were going to say no.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, I can spin. I knew this when I got sick, and it's very important to know what your temperament is when you get sick. That's one reason I told my doctors not to tell me too much. I miss here, and I can spin things bigger, faster than anyone you know.
That's important to know. I want to also talk about Love, Loss, and What I Wore, because that book so resonated with me. I mean, I'm probably the least fashionable person around, but I remember events through my clothing. And I've saved some pieces of clothing that I would never, ever wear anymore, but it's because there's a visceral pull. So I wanted to know, when you choose your clothing, do you choose it for what you think an event or an occasion is going to be? Or does the event shape you your feelings about the clothing itself.
Oh, well, first of all, what I want to say about that book, which was written by Eileen Beckerman, is that she didn't even know she did understand it. She was just lying in bed with a backache, and she decided, because she's a lovely artist, that she would draw the clothes in her life and then write something little about what they meant for her personally. And that turned out to be the most universal notion for women,
Right.
that your clothes, who you are, you know who you are through your clothes. You do. You can say, I wore that the day I met Jerry. I know what I was wearing. I was wearing this fabulous gray sweater. And then the whole story comes out of that. And when Nora and I read that book, we just thought, oh, this is a fabulous thing to do as a theater piece, because
Right.
we began collecting all these stories from all our friends. And, certain things turned up big, like boots. A lot of people had stories about boots. Boots are very empowering, and there were a lot of tales that came in on that. But then we put this all together, okay, what am I now? 77, all right? And I'm actually wearing a normal shirt today, but normally I just wear now black shirts and black pants. And my friend Hope took me out with my book publication and helped me buy some gorgeous purple pants that are wide-legged and remind me of these pants I loved from this store called Paraphernalia.
I know Paraphernalia. My God.
I had these gorgeous pants from there, and these pants reminded me of that. But I really do. Sometimes I walk down a village. One reason I love living in the village is you just never know what anyone's going to be wearing. And fabulous outfits keep coming at you on people of all ages.
Right.
It's so much fun, but it's also a trip down memory lane, because I'm thinking, oh, I used to wear something like that,
I know. It's incredible. It's incredible. So I have two more questions, then we're going to take audience questions. You've written just about everything: adult, children, YA novels, humor, movies, plays, magazines. So I don't want to talk about that so much as I want to talk about, in your bio, you talked about your love of baking and your love of TV. So tell us about how baking is a creative act for you and what you like to bake. And what's your favorite TV show?
Oh, my goodness. Okay. Right now, I am really just baking brownies. That's my main thing I'm doing right now. There's something about, I'm going to write something about COVID and how it changed me. But in February 2020, when my doctor said, this worked, you are not going to get leukemia now. You have no more chance than I do, and I've never had it.
Fabulous.
In March, a miracle. In March, COVID, and we all shut down,
Right.
And
right.
it really did alter a lot of my behavior. And I'm not baking as much as I used to. I'm eating more takeout and delivery and things that, I'm down to like 2 chicken dishes. And you know what I mean? And that was a joyful part of my life.
Right.
So, but wait, what was the other part of that question?
The other question was, beside baking, I wanted to know what your favorite TV show was, and if you've seen the Japanese show Old Enough, where they're 10-minute vignettes of these 2 or 3-year-old little Japanese kids who are entrusted with tasks like walking to the fish market all on their own on a busy street. And of course, there's cameramen hidden from them to make sure they're okay. But it's adorable, and it's my newest obsession.
Oh, I haven't heard anything about it.
Oh my God, it's Netflix. You have to watch it. Old Enough.
I'm embarrassed at how much television I watch.
No, don't be embarrassed. What do you watch?
But I mean, I'll tell you, I haven't call my agent, which I'm sure you've all seen, which is when I discovered it a couple of years ago. I actually watched the whole thing twice. I thought it was an absolutely fabulous thing. I love Dope Sick. I thought that was fantastic.
Dope Sick was great.
And I'm now rewatching Project Runways I didn't see before, because I like to fast forward to to the part
The
that,
winner, yeah.
I like to make these jumps where what's his name? Oh my God, I can't remember. He comes in and tells everyone what to do. Those are my favorite.
Right.
Right. And then I started rewatching all these English mysteries, that are so, they're very soothing, because even though it seems that more people are murdered in Oxford than in any other city in the entire world, it's very comforting to see either, Morse or Lewis or Endeavor, which is Morse Young, sort of solve it all. So I went and watched all of those, and then I started watching Vera. I mean, these are so dreary, but they made me feel calm. Even though that word, they do these things in a very routine way. Things happen, the guys are very good guys. There's just a kind of comfort in certain kind of television that is repetitive but nicely acted. So I haven't made any major discoveries lately. I'm dying to watch this show you just told me about.
Oh, it's adorable. And they're only
Right.
like 10-minute things. They're like appetizers. They're like,
Yeah.
and there's also a voiceover of this guy saying, "Will she remember the sushi?" And of course, the little kid never does.
Yes, no.
No, never.
Well,
Um,
I need to
okay,
watch
so
that.
it's wonderful. You'll love
I watch
it.
a lot of sports. I have to confess that there's all this stuff now you can get. I watch every tennis tournament now.
Right, you said that. Do you play
Yeah,
tennis?
when I was getting well from the illness, there was something just great about baseball and tennis, and um, there's always something on.
Yeah.
I'm now following Alcaraz, the new tennis phenom, and I'm a major Nadal fan. He's on my wall right here.
Oh,
Very nice photo of him.
Julie, I know we have questions for Delia. Can we pop them up? Okay. Ellen, thank you for the question. Does humor mask the anxiety or minimize it? Good question.
Oh, I think it does both. I think humor is one of the greatest ways of dealing with things that happen to you. And I think that you can, in being funny, or I always think of it as funny in a charming way, about something that's really worrying you, it helps you able to talk about it. And I think it also works the same way. I think that you can take refuge in it.
Yeah, I think so too. Do we have another question, Julie? I think there was another one. Oh, yes, another one from Ellen. Are you doing a book tour now? And how is it different now, post illness, post pandemic?
Well, I don't quite believe it's post-pandemic. So I'm not touring. I'm doing a ton of Zoom things, and I'm doing shows and interviews, but I am not touring. I think I have some live things scheduled a little bit I won't fly anywhere for anything, but I will
Right.
drive to anything live nearby. And I'm going to be in California next winter, so I'll do stuff there. But for me, it's very different, this way of promoting books on podcasts and TV things. And it's just so different.
It is different.
I used to love to go to bookstores. I used to love to give talks, even though it is unpredictable whether you get a lot of people or one person. But
One person.
right, but it's intimate. I mean, it's
Right.
the intimacy that we've lost.
Right.
And
We
I think
have.
that is really rough.
Yeah. Yeah, we have lost it. So I'm interested in what you said, that you don't think we're over the pandemic, because for me, that's part of my low-lying anxiety all the time, because I don't think we have either. How do you
I
deal?
had 4 friends who had COVID last week. I mean, thank goodness they were all vaccinated, but some of them were very sick. And I'll tell you the other thing is, you're older. We've been targeted by this disease. If you're older, you're going to get it worse than everyone else.
Right.
You're more likely to die. So that I'm sure there are younger authors that are going around the country. but I wish I
I don't
could.
feel, yeah, I can't do it.
Yeah.
I can't do it. I see another question from Janet Claire. I'll wait for Julie to pop it up. Okay, Janet Claire says, when I went through a similar illness the summer Princess Diana was killed, I remember watching every second, crying my eyes out. But was it for her or for myself? Have you found yourself in such a situation?
Oh, well, of course. I mean, if you're feeling just overwhelmed inside by what's going on, anything can trigger and double it or triple what
Right.
you might be feeling. And it's very hard to manage your emotions if you even can, when you have a deadly illness. You just have to go with whatever you're feeling at the moment. If you feel like laughing, you have to laugh. If you feel like sobbing, you have to sob. I don't think there's any value in bravery, and I don't even think you need to worry about whether it was for both of you. I'm sure that you're
Mhm.
fine.
Yeah, I also wanted to talk about that whole notion of bravery. I remember when I was grieving, I was told there are two ways of grieving. You can be like Jackie Kennedy, where you're stoic and calm and you make people feel better, or you can be like Yoko Ono, where you thrash on the floor and you show how you feel. And I always loved the Yoko Ono model because I felt you would get over things quicker that way. Do you agree?
Um, I think these things are so specific to who you are.
Right.
I mean, when Jerry died, I had such a brutal night with all these EMTs showed up. I wanted this peaceful death for him, and then all the EMTs showed up, the emergency medical teams, and there were 5 of them in my apartment and 2 policemen, and they were refusing to do what I asked, and it I went crazy crying, and by the way, I had that same feeling that the person just asked me whether she was crying for herself or for I didn't know if I was sobbing because I was so upset about Jerry dying, or whether I was sobbing because I knew it was the only move left. I mean, you don't always know what's
Right.
producing this, but afterwards, I didn't cry again. I did not cry again. And he died that night, and I went to the funeral, and
Wow.
I have not, and it was like they beat me into bluntness. But I was grieving all the time, but I wasn't crying. So I don't think you can. I think you have to accept it. Accept this is your journey. It's not someone else's. There's no right way to be.
Right. There is no right way to
When
be.
you're sick, that's so true. If you're a Googler, you're gonna Google, and
Right.
right. And if you're not, you're not going to. And tell your doctors whether you want to know a lot or a little, to be and accept that it's your experience. It's not someone else's. There's no right way for any of it.
Okay. Julie, do we have any last questions? What writing advice would you give to your younger self?
Well, I just blew my 20s. I mean, I think blow their 20s and still have a life, but I just didn't understand life, that I had one life. And then it got to be the end of my 20s, and I thought, what do you want to do with your life? It's going away. And that was when I decided to be a writer. But I made a decision, and I think it was a really good decision. I've never been young and hip, and I knew that was not a gift I had. So I never looked outside myself to find something that was popular. I always
That's
tried to look
great.
inside for what was true to me. And because like I said, your writing is your fingerprint. And that's what you have to mine, is what you understand about the world, the way you see the world, the stories you have to tell. Not because like, oh, everyone's doing vampires, I think I could do a vampire. I mean,
Oh,
vampires your whole life, then yes, you should write about vampires. But don't look outside for what's popular. Look inside for what's true.
That's great writing advice. I have one last question, which is a question I always ask. What's obsessing you now and why?
Oh, what's obsessing me? Well, getting this book published is obsessing me right now, and the
Right.
reason is eating up every inch of my existence right
That's a good answer. So I
now.
want to tell everybody out there that you should purchase Left on 10th. It's an amazing, amazing, life-changing book. We at A Mighty Blaze love bookshop.org because it'll direct you to your favorite indie. But if you have a favorite indie, go to the favorite indie right away. Thank you all for coming here. And Delia, I'm thrilled to have been able to talk to
There's
you.
so
I'm
much
absolutely thrilled. And I
so
promise if I run into you on 10th Street, I will like gauge you whether you want company before I inflict myself on you. But thank you so, so much for being here. And thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.